There is an IGN video, and holy crap, it's got stuff. Hello, everyone. Yesterday, Stormgate put out a ton of new information. There's a full email breakdown that'll happen, but I want to talk about this 7 minutes of just dumping information that IGN dropped on our heads yesterday, because it's mechanics, it's new units, it's changes to other units, it's slightly new graphical things. But in general, it's actually just so freaking exciting. So without further ado, let's take a look. Actually, we can skip the... You've seen the trailer. The important stuff is actually what happens in the video itself. So we start actually with an endgame. But the key thing here, we got to talk about some stuff before we ever get into, well, new units, because you can see the Magmadons up top, and those are new. We got to talk about some UI things more before we get anything else. And first of all, we got hotkeys now. We have hotkeys. I don't know how I feel about it on the right side. I understand they're getting away from StarCraft, but I really would like to see it down on the bottom, just where your eyes are naturally. But we got hotkeys, and I'm really curious. I don't know. I'm really curious to see whether they have auto hotkeying being added in, because I know they talked about having different hotkeys have units automatically getting added into them. So I don't know if that's going to be true or not, but we have them there. That's visible. Other thing to point out here is other thing to point out is that there are bars on the health bars. You can see that, and it appears to be something standardized. I don't know whether this is like 50 health is a block, 100 health is a block, something like that. But we have blocks now, which actually is gonna I think that's gonna help in legibility quite a bit, and seeing just at a glance how damaged an army is, which is really nice. Other thing we got to point out, let me turn my webcam off for this. Yes, webcam's on the right side. That's not a big deal. We've seen in other videos that it's on the left side, on the correct side if you're a StarCraft fan. It's on the right side. This is a more kind of League of Legends idea. I assume this is swappable, but they've done a much better job of making things visible on the minimap. So you can see now where Therium is. Those are the gold dots. Or Luminite, those are the gold dots. You can see Therium. Those are going to be the green dots. You can see some, like, it's much more visible where the resources are, which was a bit of a problem in Alpha 1, not gonna lie. Figuring out where you're expanding to was not the easiest thing. And can confirm, in the Alpha I played in, they have a map on the left side. So I think this is just a toggle they've added. I think this is just a toggle that they've added, and I assume this is something that we saw players go and what's the word I'm looking for? And of course, the reviewer here, I guess this was just their preference. But anyway, this is the start. You can see up also most of the new Infernal units. There's the Flayed Dragon up top, Magmadons as well. But actually, we don't need to. We've seen this, but here's more production stuff. It does seem that they have actually a couple cool things already. They have unit shading. So in Alpha 1, it was blue and red. And all the alphas, it was blue and red. And that means that let's look like that's standard. We have color shading now. This is a purple. This is a purple Vanguard player. The Infernal player seems to be blue, I guess. Based on the minimap, it's like a teal blue, so it is a different color. But also, we got to talk about this thing that used to be called the Harbinger, now called the Doombringer, which is this. Let me hit the right thing. Which is this thing. Actually, let's go back a second. Which is this dropship, right? But the thing about it is, it's not a normal dropship where you go and you pick up and it's flying and it picks up and down. It appears, and they go into this more detail in the video a little bit later, it has to drop. It has to touch grass, as the video says. It has to deploy on the ground to deploy every unit all at once. But also it spreads shroud around it, which is, this thing. It's a space control thing that gives units what the devs are calling white health. Shields, effectively, that increment up when you're on shroud, increment down when you're off shroud. So it's a really powerful space control drop. It's very different, and also does have a teleport ability. It appears to, based off the teleport back home, just based on the thing. Also, flaming imps. This was a dominant strat actually in the alpha, where you just go for imp drops and things. But also, Yeah, this is the Stormgate preview. Also, this was the Alpha 1. This was the Alpha 1 map that they've been playing on for now. But we can see, of course, brutes can split. There is one big difference. I thought they were going to show brute splitting here, but there's one big difference from how the brutes work in this change, in this patch, in this build compared to others. And that is, so we have brutes, and they're there. You can split them into 2 fiends. Previously, the fiends would just last. Actually, wait a second here. 1 second. What did we select? I hit the wrong thing. I just noticed something looking at the video right now. And we need to scroll back just a little bit. So they select the Shroud Stone, which is a turret structure. Briefly, the Shroud Stone gets selected. We're going to pause this. And there are 4 abilities on the Shroud Stone. And I am pretty sure these are rituals. I don't know. I'm not certain. But I do see V looks like the outline of a flayed dragon. And we know from the IGN interview that flayed dragons are summoned from anima. And seeing these bars, these don't look like health bars because that's fully done. It's not a shroud bar either. I think the bar that fills this is the anima bar, and therefore, based on ZXCV, whatever these are, one of those is it looks like a crescent moon, so maybe it's some invisibility, some sort of scan, maybe some sort of mystery. I don't know. Then summoning the flayed dragon is, I would assume, the top tier one. It looks like you gather anima in these shroud stones and then spend them afterwards, and their static defense. So I just noticed that. That's kind of cool. But also, of course, we saw the imps exploding things. It should be noted that when we talk about the Infernals, you spend workers. You spend workers to build structures. This is not the Vanguard where you get them back. Think Zerg. It's a drone. It turns into a structure. Except if you're doing that, you're actually getting sucked back to whatever realm the Infernals come from, which is pretty cool. But anyway, the other thing, so imps when they break, as actually we're just gonna see a fight here. Should be pointed out as well. Never mind, I can't talk about that just yet. I'm trying to remember the pacing of this video as we go on because there's a lot of stuff that this video goes into. But yeah, actually that's really important. So you see the fiends right now, and they all have some level of health. The fiends now, when they're off shroud, so when they're on shroud, I guess the shroud heal, the shroud barrier ticks up faster than they die. But if you take them off shroud, they lose health over time. They're not going to be all that great. So they're a very time limited resource, which means all of those the fiend rush abilities that we saw early on in the in Alpha 2, in the most recent Alpha, that's all gone. Doesn't work anymore. Also, things we have to point out is that this is super cool, and I think it might be in the next. We're gonna let this play because I think it might be in this setting. Production structures are different for the Infernals, where you build the structure and it effectively is going to get larvae. Each structure is going to get larvae where it increments a number of build charges, and the longer it goes, the more you get. I assume that there's a cap, which means you're going to have a very bursty production, and I think we're going to see players build a lot of the equivalent of a barracks early on, build a lot of maybe conclaves early on, build the stuff up, build up the production charges, and then build them all at once because you want to go. And RTS is played most optimally when you can develop your economy as quick as possible, and then, or you develop your tech, whatever it is, and then build your army, unless you're going for a rush. So I think that's going to be really interesting. It also means, as I was having this discussion in one of the Discords, where if you're doing that, you're not going to be killing it. Things won't be dying as often in the early to mid game, which means your anima count is not going to be increasing as much, which is pretty interesting. Also, I'm not sure what this building is with the skull on top. It might be, it looks similar to the Ritual Spire or whatever it was called that was upgrades in the previous build, but I don't know. It might just be a revamp. But also, we get to see our first look at the Flayed Dragon, that thing that you build. I don't know if you have to spend Luminite and Therium for it, but certainly you have to spend Anima for it. And it's I wasn't a Warcraft 3 guy, but IGN people are saying, it's a lot like a Frostworm, and it does have an AoE attack. But the cool thing about what this does actually, so Fiends, which are these the little horn guys you can see attacking the front line right now, they do a couple things. By default, they have mutaglaves. They glaive worms. They hit things, it bounces around, does just some level of splash. You can get an upgrade for them, though, that in exchange for some of their HP, they're going to apply something called Infest on enemy units. And that Infest means that the unit takes damage over time, and if they die while under the effect of this effect status, this Infest status, they're going to spawn a Fiend, which is subject to everything else. They die quickly. They're not all that tanky, but they can start to snowball fights. And that's when we talk about the glaive or the Flayed Dragon, because the Flayed Dragon has an ability that effectively just sucks all the infest off the units that are infested, does damage to them, and also gives white health to units behind. And it does a bit of a damage in AoE. I guess we're going to see more of that a little bit later. As this was the beta 1 map, by the way, this was the one that has catapults, which was an experiment into kind of pushing mechanics. It was interesting. I don't know how I felt about it as much. It did lead to so much priority was on the catapults for quite a while, but cool idea. And it's going to be interesting to see how they iterate on it. Other thing we got to talk about, and this was from the article, is that as we can see, the fiends are just losing health over time right now. Also, the interesting thing is it seems like they get health from whatever the brutes, or white health from whatever the brutes had. But there's an upgrade now available to brutes that means that brutes on low health at below some threshold will now automatically split into fiends, which is just really nice for mid to late game when you have 30 brutes or something. You don't want to be manually toggling to get more value out of them. And that may be something that we don't see pro players do because they don't see it's worthwhile. Probably not worth it against a bunch of Gaunts, actually, because then you just give your opponent the opportunity to spawn more fiends, which is not great. And oh, by the way, yeah, that's absolutely what that is. Okay, I'm sorry. We got to look at this again. There's the little bar. See the little purple bar on the Shroud Stone? We're going to see the medic go down. Bar goes up. That's absolutely what it is. Shroud Stones collect anima in some way, which is super cool. I'm just saying, we're seeing small things. I'm excited about that. Of course, this is the segment where they talk about Infest and the Gaunts and things, and you can see it actually right here where it's a little awkward. The Scout almost beats the Gaunt, which is not exactly what you want, but it appears to have a speed boost from popping the Infest as well as just doing this dot damage. And there we go, Fiend spawns as well. So I guess it's I saw someone on one of the Discords calling it an Infest stim. But anyways, big fights here. We're going to talk about those walkers in just a second. But also, by the way, I'm proud of the reviewer here for understanding Baneling imp flanks to make sure you kill everything. It's fantastic. But we can see that the Flayed Dragon is doing an AoE damage attack. Go back a little bit. You can also, I want to say in this video, you can see the, yeah, maybe. Do we see the Flayed Dragon attack here? Or a spell effect? No, we don't. That's a little bit later. But the Flayed Dragon has that ability, of course, to again suck the infest off and apply it elsewhere. I think we see that in the next clip. So yeah, there we go. So we're gonna see a bunch of Gaunts move forward. You're gonna see the dragon cast 2 spells. One of those is, I believe, right now it's gonna suck it off. It's gonna suck the infest off and give white health to everything. And then I think it takes all that energy, all that infested whatever gunk, and it applies it as like an AoE attack on units down below. Now, the article says the only way to deal with it is to not let them get there. I am willing to bet that, A, that's a result of us being in beta, and all units are not nearly in yet. But also, you know, I don't know how much time that the new reviewer had to actually to play the game and get good at it and make things happen. Because we're seeing all respect here, we're seeing a lot of minerals in the bank, which may just be because it's a test for recording. I don't know. But we gotta talk about these guys. These are called Weavers. They're my favorite unit of the Infernals by a mile. Look at these things. There's just something disconcerting about how they walk. They're kind of like a mix between Modair, the monster from Ritual, and like Ungoliant or some other evil spider. They're just these tall walkers with one big eye, and their body parts don't quite seem to fit together correctly. Something deeply disconcerting about them. But they're ground vipers. That's what you need to think of them as. They're ground viper colossus. So they have this ability to, as we'll take a look at it again. They have this lash ability that harpoons the target unit, pulling it to the location of the Weaver and dealing 60 damage if it's an enemy. And as we can see right here, it's going to lash forwards fairly quickly. It doesn't bring them directly. It seems like it brings them to the edge of the Weaver, not to the center. And also, these are ground units. These are slow-moving ground units. So the repositioning ability, not nearly as broken as a Viper that can sit in the air. It also seems to have a consume ability, but this shouldn't be for energy. And in fact, Lash seems to be something that's time-based, not energy-based, which is important to point out. But Magmadons also have this ability, and at least in the last test, it was the ability to eat the Fellhogs, which are on the structures on the right side. The little Fell Barrows, the little barrows and the Fellhogs, the cute little creatures on top, to top up your white health bar. And we'll see footage in a second where it seems like that's the case as well. Also, these are slow. They do melee damage. They want to get in contact with the enemy. And they have the ability to see up some cliffs, as we can see, kind of seeing up the middle ground cliff, but not all the way. So, I love these units. We also get to see Magmadons, which don't have a stun, unlike the previous alpha, it looks like, but they are... We finally have... they had a model, unanimated model in the alpha. Now they're animated and rigged up, and it seems like something's riding them. They got riders. They're not just units by themselves. And apparently their dash has been, or their stun has been removed, but there is some upgrade locked behind tech in this video, and I don't know what it is. I can see the dash, I can see the consume, and actually we'll see right here, they're gonna consume one of the fell hogs and white health gets popped up. But also harbingers, which are an important thing to point out. So we can see they spawn, they drop down to the ground, all the units drop out of them, and then we start to see that white health generate off of the shroud. So the important thing here is you can't just say easily drop 2 imps, have them explode a mineral line, go away. You have to commit to the space, which is pretty cool. That does it. There are going to be, if you can let them set up, they're going to be harder to dislodge. But on the flip side, you do have to commit more on your drop harass. And there's no warp in here. They do seem to have some sort of ability. Let's see if I can pause it in time. Yeah. Let me see if I can. Oh, there we go. Okay, so when they're in the air, they seem to have some sort of recall ability that looks like a teleport icon to me, which allows them to go back home. But as we can see, as it lands, they don't have the teleport anymore. They just have Disgorge, load back in. So if they're deployed, there's Shroud. You can put units into them. You can take them out. If it's in the air, you can land, or you can get teleported back home. So that's exciting. I think this was the end. Yeah, they just show stuff at the very end, the units going through, juxtaposing the Vanguard and the Infernals. I'm really excited about what I'm seeing from the Infernals thus far. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty fun. I can't wait to get my hands on the beta December 5th, and I can't wait for the show match. Can't wait for the show match December 17th in Atlanta. So if you want to stay up to date on all the Stormgate news or StarCraft stuff, because I do that too, make sure to hit the sub button here on YouTube. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/BamWolf, and I'll see you next time. Peace.